Dear colleagues, I would like to tell you now about our description policy of the National Library of Finland. You may call it cataloging policy or policy of descriptive metadata, whatever you like. But now we have a document which is called Description Policy of the National Library of Finland. What it's supposed to be and why we wrote it out. I will try to tell you the idea and the main points of the content of our document and how it has been and will be very useful in many ways. The starting point of the work was the idea that the meaning or importance of the descriptive metadata is growing all the time, and the value of the work, what we are doing for bibliographic data, is growing. And librarians also sometimes think that it's only the issue of those librarians who are working with national bibliographies or with other issues regarding descriptive metadata, who understand the importance of that work. The National Library of Finland has a new strategy, and I will not present it more closely now, but I would only like to take notice of the focal points and pointed out how description or metadata has, in a way or another, something to do with every focal point in our strategy. You can see behind these focal points the issues of legal deposits, preservation, open metadata, availability, and so on. But every focal point has something to do with metadata. So descriptive metadata is an essential, necessary, indispensable for the digital library. To carry out the strategy, the library has drawn up several policies and action programs. We have collection development policy and acquisition program, preservation policy, digitization policy, and so on. And then we have also some other kind of plans or programs, such like human resources plan. So the description policy is a tool of a strategic, sorry, that's a difficult word, strategic management. When this audience here, when you see the complete document of the description policy, you maybe think, of course, that is very obvious. There is nothing new. But I would say that it was very useful to have this process to make up or make out, to write out the description policy. We had a working group where many colleagues of mine were working together, and they came from different departments of the library. So we analyzed the aims and goals of the description. We had many discussions, long discussions of the value of the description work. We could indicate impressiveness of the high-level descriptive metadata. Also, directors and staff could find a common understanding about this work. We made many strategic decisions. We believe that when we have brought this policy out, it can lead to an appropriate resource allocation. After publishing the policy, also other libraries of Finland are willing to accept this description policy as a recommendation or guidelines, so that so I believe that the metadata will be more of uniform quality in whole country. And the work with the description policy will now continue with cooperation or with work with archives and museums in Finland. So we have more and more common understanding what we are talking about when we are talking about the descriptive metadata. Here you can see the content. As I already mentioned, I believe that there is no need to open, for example, to chapter 2, what is description here, but it has been very necessary, required and useful for directors and other decision makers. By the way, if you are interested to read the whole document, it will be soon in our web pages after when I'm back home after IFLA week. So I will put it there and in English too. I will now focus on some points which I believe are important definitions of policy. So, for the first, the description policy defines the principles of all kind of library resources, and we wanted to make it clear that we have a special responsibility as a national bibliography agency. But the principles are equal for our research collections, historical collections, archive material also, and material to be digitized. We, of course, use international standards, and we have listed how do you say? We have made a list of all kinds of standards which we use. I could also say that these points here and the whole document as now or higher status as the issues had before, because the working group has reached a consensus about the issues in the document, and the whole document has been also discussed by the steering committee of the library. And it has also been approved by the board of directors. This policy paper will come through by action plans or action plan, which will be updated every year. I think it was some of the most important results of the work that our directors and also the board of the directors accepted the idea that efficient description makes library collections and materials readily available to the end user. There was a time when they thought that there is no need to have a bibliographic description when everything was, so to say, free in the web. And also the second phrase, bibliographic description and generation of metadata, are National Library core responsibilities and strategic focuses. That was a very good discussion behind this phrase. And at the end of the work, we were very sure that our goal is social production and open distribution of metadata. That means cooperation, decentralization, nationally and internationally, and tools developed in the network environment. This goal is also nationally accepted, and one way to go towards it is that our union catalog, national union catalog, will come a union catalog. We will call it the National Metadata Repository, and all the libraries in Finland will come in or will join this new kind of union catalog, and it has this goal too. So now we have the policy, action plan, goal, and a paper we can how would I say, we can take and look what we have decided to do in the coming years. So, but the policy and action plan is not enough, because after that we meet many practical challenges to solve. And now we have one, or should I say, Sinikka will now continue with these issues, and we can see that theory and practice is not always so easy. Thank you.
I go on with the very basic work of cataloging Finnish bibliography. The question is how to rationalize our cataloging of various digital resources. I have some questions and sketches, and I tell about how to get metadata in our digitizing process. And an important question is also how to guarantee the access on the online resources. How to produce metadata in Finnish National Bibliographic efficiently. At first, I have 4 advisory statements dealing with metadata. IFLA recommendation from 2002 says that NBA should take responsibility for preparing extensive bibliographic records of the national imprint. Few years later, the guidelines for national bibliography says the responsibility of the NBA to create extensive records was predicated on print resources and is no longer sustainable. Our own content standard ESDPD says nothing anymore about cataloging levels. And at last, our own library description policy advise us to make efficient bibliographic. Overall, it's not difficult to make extensive NB records. It's more difficult to make economic records for all the needs of national bibliographic and for the access to the resources. A good example of getting efficient metadata comes from our ephemera project, which was funded by European Union. It focused on developing functional workflows in digitizing ephemera collections. As a result of this project, we get customized MARC records almost automatically. In the DocWorks post-processing system, the digitized resource was catalogued in a customized form of using MODS. Besides ephemera metadata, it is now possible to use this process with various content types with different cataloging levels. This is the picture of the MODS screen. The digitized object is on the right side. The titles, author, publisher, and the publishing year are already there when the cataloger sees this form. These elements came from the previous phase of the OCR. In this case, the cataloger fills in the classification, subject heading, and the genre. From the MODS form, the record is modified to MARC XML. And when the record is loaded to our database, some more information is added automatically. They are marked here in red color. In this record, this is a record of a component part of an aggregate entity, which is based on FRBR model. This monograph record is linked to a collection record with host item entry. On the whole, this project is a good example of cooperation of many experts over functional units and sections of Finnish National Library, and it was very exciting to take part in this process. And something about our online resources and electronic resources on the net. We have lots to do in this area until everything goes as flexible as in digitizing ephemera. Here are some Finnish statistics from last year. In our bibliography, we had 13,000 new monograph titles, of which 7% were online material. We get them as deposit copies with no associated metadata other than ISBN or title, or both. We had also 1,600 new serials, of which 25% was online. With serials, we get no publisher metadata. But at the moment, we are working on our deposit practices, and we get more data with the deposit copies this autumn. And here are some problematic resources online. Large part of online resources and e-books are, so to speak, traditional. But there are also new concepts of publishing and new, not so professional publishers who had to found the easiness to operate on the net. This part of e-resources takes our time when we are thinking their place in bibliography and their cataloging. Here are some characteristics of them. They are published by the small publisher, and many of self-publishing. They are often small in size, like books, booklets, or pamphlets, if they are printed, and their life is short. And it's difficult to apply our selection principles. There is a temptation to catalog them as low level as possible. Sometimes it's difficult to decide what are the adequate access points. And however, national bibliography might be the only place where the metadata of these sources is organized in information retrieval in the future. And also important is our mission, what is to give a proper picture of our country's publishing output. The amount of electronic resources is increasing. Our human resources in cataloging are decreasing. Anyhow, the access and the metadata should be guaranteed. To get our work done, we have to think about methods. Our new content standard defines today only the mandatory areas of bibliographic description. And the level of metadata should be determined by the significance of the resource in relation to the national imprint, says the guidelines. Are there any shortcuts to handle electronic resources? Should we forget those parts of bibliographic description which are so typical to NB records and which give them additional value? I show two approaches to solve the problem of the resource with many titles. In this example, the same net publisher has many titles from the same author. In this sketch, the titles and the author are combined into one collection. The name of this collection is Guidebook Books Japan, and because it is a collection, there is also the inclusive dates at the end of the title and the author. There is a classification and a subject heading, Travel Guides. The physical description tells that the collection has 23 ebooks. Then follows the list of the name and the titles, and at the end, a link to our electronic collection. And this is an example of many titles from different authors by the same publisher. This publisher sells only English poetry and prose. And again, it's a collection. Its name is Poetry and Prose in English from Expressed, and the Expressed is the publisher's name. There is 68 books with names and titles in the record and the link to collection. And finally, the access to online materials and the question of linking. In this case, the link goes to the printed record to a similar content on the net. I asked, are the national bibliographies responsible for giving permanent links in their records? In Finland, over 10% of links are broken after 1 year, and the amount is multiplying in the long run. We have picked up broken links, fixed them if possible, or deleted them if no resources available. But is it worthwhile to check the links and fix them? Does it matter is there a broken link in the record? Has anybody added links also to the Internet Archive? There is also a choice to use only the permanent links to the deposit copy collection. These links are guaranteed and they are in our hands like the resources. Thank you.